Hello, Physio Practice Owners. If you want to know an exact framework in how to attract and retain superstar team members into your physiotherapy practice that helps you run the practice without you, then this is the episode for you. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. It is called The Key Rules in Building a Physiotherapy Superstar Team that helped you run the practice without. One of the biggest things I hear from practice owners is this issue of, firstly, hiring great staff and great team members and retaining them long term. It is a big problem. Obviously, since the service of physiotherapy and all the services that are attached to it, it's all about having the right people. This is a big part of making sure that you can build a practice that grows over time, that you can scale, that you can step away from, that runs by itself with very little to minimal involvement from you. So what I've done is I've put together this episode to share with you some very powerful frameworks for you to have a look at and put into your practice when it comes to attracting, adding, and retaining staff, great superstar staff, long term. Okay? So the first thing I will mention is, if you haven't read these books, Built to Last, Good to Great, and Great by Choice, I really recommend you as a practice owner to go ahead and read them. They're by an author by the name of Jim Collins, a prolific author in the sense and knowing when it comes to how to build great companies. All right. He hasn't just written these books anecdotally. These books are based on literally the most successful companies and all the principles that got to them being really successful and literally great. All right. These books literally have a look at the most successful companies and how they do things. Right. So if you haven't read them, I would really recommend, as a practice owner, if you want to take your practice to that next level and let it keep scaling to that, maybe you want to add another practice, or maybe you want to add lots of practices. All right. But to do that, you need to have great staff, and you need to know how to attract them and how to grow your practice, right? I would really recommend that you read these books, all right? Because what we are about to talk about today, a lot of the concepts has been taken out from these books, all right? We practice this in our company to great detail, and any practice that I know who's really successful, all right, that are long-term in terms of their growth and how they want to go, they have these principles working in some way, shape, or form in their practice as well. All right. So if you haven't read them, go ahead and read them. And also, what I recommend you is go ahead and Google Building Your Company's Vision. It's a Harvard Business Review. It's also by Jim Collins. Okay. So go ahead and type in Building Your Company's Vision and HBR, or Harvard Business Review. So it's a big piece of literature that you really need to read. I recommend that you read if you're really serious about growing your practice to that next level, and keep growing that way as well. Okay. So let's get back to building a superstar team. But you might ask, why do we need to focus on this a lot? Well, especially when it comes to physio, right? Physiotherapy, physical therapy practices, like I mentioned before, because the people are so important. They're an integral part of the business. Getting this right is obviously the no-brainer. You've got to get it right. But one of the big mistakes that I see from practice owners is they focus on the business first rather than the people. But here's the thing, right? As the economy and the landscape changes, and it will change over time, right? You need to have a bunch of people in your team that can literally direct your practice and your business as it changes. If you have the people, obviously the people in your team, and the bus being the business of a practice, you need to have the right people in the seats of that bus. That bus might go through lots of different scenarios, right? It might come to a place where it's got a flat tire, the engine blows out, or there's been an accident. All sorts of different things can happen to that bus, right? That's your business. All sorts of things can happen to it. But if you don't have the right people in the seats of that bus who don't know how to handle those situations that happens to that bus or your practice, right? You're not going to be able to move forward. So in other words, the focus when it comes to people and business, it's always the people first, right? The people in the bus are the ones that will change the bus's direction and get it moving in the right direction when it goes a little bit off track or when it needs to change. So without the people, you can't do that. So focus your energy and attention first on the people. Hire great people and great people only. But you might ask, well, how do I figure out how the great people are? Are they just great physios? Are they, ones with high distinctions and they've done really well at the university level and the college level? Or do they have great people skills? Do they have great business skills? How do I choose? Well, if you break it down in a very simple way, it's actually very easy to figure out how to choose them. And the way you do that, once again, if you're watching us on video, right, in front of you, you'll see a matrix. All right, it's called the performance versus values matrix, right? So on the horizontal axis, on the x-axis, it's called values match, right? The more right you go, the higher the staff that match to your values. On your vertical axis, you have your performance axis, right? The higher up you go in that axis, the more performance there is, right? So if you break it down into quadrants, right, on the bottom left-hand corner, you have low performance and low values match. The best people are on the other side, in the top right-hand corner, high performance and high values match. And obviously, top left, high performance, low values match. Bottom right, low performance and high values match. Now you might say, it makes it very, very simple. It makes it very easy. You just hire a high performance and high values match. Yes, that is obviously what we need to do. But in reality, these people are very, very rare. I almost compare them to, if you're a big basketball fan, I'm a big fan of Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan is a high performance, high values match. They're extremely rare. They're cream of the crop. They're around, but they're rare. So you can go for them and you do need them in your team. But if you only shoot for them, you might not hire at the right pace, right? Now, when you have a big enough reputation and pull towards your practice, right, which is very, very possible, and we cover this in how to do this in other podcasts, right? I encourage you to have a look at how to attract really, really superstar, high performance, high values people. That's very, very possible. All right. Once again, have a look at those podcasts. But if you're not quite there, if you don't have the pull into your practice like you should to get the high performance, high values match. In other words, you might have a lot of people apply to a job advert that you put out, but you'll interview a certain number of them, but one of them is like, wow, they're a superstar. I want them. But you may have had, the unfortunate event of them going to another practice, right? You couldn't attract. Now there's a reason for that. Like I said, we'll cover that in a different podcast, and we've done that. But if you can't quite get there yet, what do you do? All right. So obviously you don't want to have low performance people. Let me start again. If you can't have that, what quadrant do you need to go for? What would you prioritize? Is it performance or is it values? What would you prioritize? Have a think about that. Right? Now, you might say the answer is performance. Right? Okay. So if that's the case, right, the only option, or the only quadrant that's left, if you take out high performance and high values, the only option that you have is high performance and low values match, right? That might seem like the obvious answer, but let me tell you, it's not. Only because you want Remember, whenever the bus needs to change direction or need to get moving forward, you need to have the right people, right? And working together as a unit to really move you forward. One person who's not fully into, within the unit, or one person who is not really unified with the team, literally can be the difference in moving forward the right way and the right direction. Okay. And the way I see it is there are so many occasions, and you might have gone through this yourself, right? You have a great team, but you have one bad egg that kind of ruins it for everybody else, right? And they might be awesome physio, they're high performance, but they're a bad egg, let's just say, right? Or they're not quite there. And as a result of it, what will happen is you tend to affect the unity and the stability or the solidarity of the entire team. And you can bring the performance down because of that, right? That's going to be a problem for you, right? So what I would encourage is, even though they're high performance, if they don't quite fit in, you need to either have a look at, improving them to get to a better values match, right? If that's what you want to do, or maybe looking at letting them go and only adding people that are values match. But you might say, well, if you're focusing on values, you're focusing on low performance, right? But remember, it's the bus and the people. You need a bunch of people to move that bus in the right direction. Whenever something happens, whenever something needs to change, the whole unit needs to work together. And when they do that, all of a sudden they become a high performance team. If you have a whole bunch of people that are unified and they're working together as a unit, what you'll find is that their performance will increase over time. So basically, they come at the low performance and high values match, and they go up towards high performance and high values match. When you get to that point, all right, you're going to have a practice that is really attractive to high performance, high values match. But if you're not quite there, aim for lower performance but high values match. Now, you might wonder, what does this values mean? What does all this mean? How do I get my values to be high? Well, firstly, what are values, and how do I get them to be a high values match? Well, what I mean by values is literally core values, right? If you look at once again, if you go back to those books that I talked about with Jim Collins, right? All those great companies, businesses around the world, the true greats, have core values as a backbone of how they should be within the team, right? So core value, a definition of it is a core value are guiding beliefs, right? Or ways of being that literally lasts forever, doesn't change, right? So in our company, we have 7 simple, powerful core values that are in place, and we look at that all the time. So ask yourself first, do you have core values in your practice and in your practices? If not, well, let's start with the core values first. You need to get a set of core values, no more than 7, all right? But they need to be simple, but they need to be very powerful beliefs that last forever, right? Now, what I mean by that is it doesn't matter if technology changes, the way you treat patients changes, whatever changes in the future, it does not affect who you are, what your values are. It doesn't change. I'll give you an example. Patients first. Clear and kind communication. Now you can see these values, doesn't matter what changes in how you deliver things or whatever you do, these values will never ever change. Now these are examples only. You come up with what's right for you, what you truly stand for as ways of being. All right. So core values are who you are as people, what you stand for as people, right? The values of them. So you've got to get that right. Once you've nailed that down, right, no more than 7, then you've got to have a core, what we call a core purpose. What's your big why? What's a big why, which is a core purpose, right? So the real key question here is, why does your practice really exist? Besides making money, you've got to remove money and revenue and profits and all that kind of money-related stuff, right? You've got to remove that. But what does it really exist for? What's its core purpose? What's its purpose? Did not change over time. Your core purpose should also be an endless goal, meaning that you can never ever achieve it. And that sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But if you really think about it, it's literally, it should be a guiding North Star when it comes to who you stand for as a bunch of people. A core purpose for a great physio practice could be raise treatment standards for physiotherapy. That will never end. Even if you can get chronic back pain better in one session, you can still raise those standards. Now, how you treat people, raising the treatment standards of physiotherapy, that will never end, all right? Another one is improve the quality of life in the community. That will never end. You can always improve, all right? So ask yourself, us as a unit, as a whole practice, and if you want to call it a sports team, right? We're a sports team or a bunch of people. What do we truly stand for? That will never end, all right? So you've got to get these two things bang on, core values and core purpose. You've got to get them really, really strong, okay? Because once you do, once you're really clear about them, your core values and your core purpose, they literally become the guiding star, right? A set of rules, if you want to call it that, for every decision, every way of being, every action, little or big, within your business, right? Simple set of rules that they need to fit into, right? Otherwise, how would you know something's out of place? You wouldn't really, because there's no set of rules, right? So the core values and the core purpose, right? Maximum 7 core values and then 1 core purpose. If you have that, you can literally, you say if one action is in line with the core values or not, okay? It can really refine the way your entire team operates because they clearly know what the values are and what the core purpose is, right? And remember, going back to the matrix, you want to have high core value, lower performance is what you're trying to hire if you can't get high performance and high value, right? So if they're all in the same value, they have the same values and they're energized by the mission or the purpose, the core purpose, as a unit, their output is going to be greater than they were individually, all right? So what I say is, when you have this set of rules, people have nowhere to hide. You know, you can tell if something they did or said or anything like that, if it's in line, the core values or core purpose. If it's not, it's very clear. So I even use it to send out formal warning letters, right? Because in violation of core values, right? So you as a leader really need to make sure that you get your core values really, really clear to the team, right? And that there is a set of rules that you need to abide by. And as obviously you need to do what you need to do to try and help them get in line with the core values. But at a certain point, if they keep breaking the core values, you can use that to formalize proceedings to maybe let them go or things like that, all right? It's very black and white that they haven't abided by a core set of rules that we stand for as people. It helps you making tough decisions really, really easy because it's very, very black and white. And the other thing is, as a practice owner, your role is leading with your vision or the core purpose, all right? So this is why getting the core purpose is so critical. You as a practice owner, you got to know what you're here for other than making money. Because if you take care of that, if you really pay attention to your core purpose, you will make money, you will make the profits, you will attract the right people, right? You've got to have a mission and what you stand for as a bunch of people, right? Be really, really clear on that and then articulate that and keep putting that in front of the team so they really know really well what the core purpose is for your team, right? That's it. So you as a practice owner, you literally have 3 things that you need to do when it comes to hiring great people, right? And getting the best out of them. It literally is this, right? So we talked about how to hire the great people into your team. So go for the high performance, high values if you can attract them. If not, go for the high values match first and lower performance. So get the best people that you can, right? You need to give them the best tool to do their job, all right? So what you'll find is that as a team gets better, as a team is more unified, it's getting more stronger as a unit, their performance level up. And as they're doing that, they will need more tools, whatever that may be. There could be software, it could be certain treatment, little gadgets, or whatever you want to call it, the tools, right? You got to hire the great people, give them the best tools, and literally get out of the way, let them do it. But your role is to constantly feed the vision or the core purpose of your business to the team. So they keep becoming more solid and keep raising their status in terms of what they deliver, right? That's all you got to do. So if you're an owner, what you need to do is hire the best people you can, give them the best tool to do their job to the best level and keep raising their standards, and feed the vision, articulate and literally make them excited about the vision and the core purpose of your practice. That's it. All right. So I hope that was useful. If you did find that useful, all right, go to our website. There's lots of things like this podcast, things to download, blog articles, all that kind of thing. Our website's physiomarketing.co. Right, head down there. If you want somebody who knows this space really well, physio practices, and helping them, if you want to get some help from someone who knows the space well to grow your practice to that next level, I encourage you to head down to our website once again, physiomarketing.co, and book a call with us. We can have a chat about getting your practice to wherever you want it to go compared to where it is right now and all the things that I'm missing to get there. Other than that, thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next time.